I'm Brandon Cullins, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how to try to fix a horse that ducks. My first thing, if I have a horse that gets sent in and it's ducking, first thing I want to check is everything physically. Why is he doing it? Usually, good horses don't do things like that for no reason. So my first thing is always go to the vet and see if you can find anything physically to why he's doing it. And if it's an attitude thing or a nerves thing, then you can address that. But and it's very horse dependent. If I have one that gets real nervous or something, I'll definitely treat him for ulcers or do whatever I can to keep him calm and relaxed before a run. Also when I'm working him. But so if he checks out physically and then I take care of any gut issues or nerve issues, then I make sure that he's riding the way he should. A lot of it is a lack of brokenness, I feel like, because if some steps have been missed, or if some horses they're more intense than others, and they kind of lose that training as they run more, and that's pretty common too. So I always go back and make sure the horse is soft and broken. I want to be able to do everything I want to do with him around here, where I can move him and place him. He'll stop good. He doesn't ever pull on me. Then once I get that done and he's calm and relaxed, then I'll start going to the barrels. And to me, if I have one, I feel like the most common is the second barrel that horses duck. And if one usually is going to duck the first barrel, I feel like that's more of a training thing. That those are usually easier to fix, I feel like. But the biggest thing is when before I go to the barrels, I'm going to start loping them around. And if I have to hold the horse up here to keep him from falling in the circle, to me that's going to be an easy fix, because he's waiting on me to hold him up, and I can't hold him up in the run. So then I'll come back and I'll just put him square between the reins, and then I want to get him where I can lope him with no pressure on my inside rein and he stays stood up. So I won't necessarily drop the rein like that, but see, I want him to be able to be stood up off of that real light and easy. That way, he's not relying on me to hold him up. And I want to be able to put that outside rein in him. I like having an outside rein, a good outside rein on a horse, because I feel like that's where I can really control their hind end, and you get all their collection and their gather. So I'll be riding one around, if you watch, my hands won't move much. But I want to be able to really lope those horses wherever I want to put them. And if I can do that with my body and not really have to do much with my hands, then you're going to be a whole lot better off. Ooh. Like I was saying, if one's leaning on you or something, loping the circle, I always go back to square to keep them between the reins. So if I have one leaning on me, I'm going to put their head and their whole body, everything straight between the reins. So I'm going to start making them pull themselves around. Because I feel like if you try to get shaped too early, it kind of pushes them down in that circle. So I want them to be stood up and pulling themselves around. And then that way, I want them even between the reins. So if one's diving in on me or something, like I said, I'll square them up between the reins, kind of really sit deep in my seat, and I'll actually kind of ride my feet up in their shoulders a little bit more. So if he's pushing down on me, I'll push my foot up into his shoulder to really encourage that front foot to move out. And then that way, once they get like this, where he's pulling himself around, then I know I got something. Also, that goes back to, if you can't get that at a lope, go back to trotting. And everything, if anything's not going right fast, always back up is the easiest way to fix anything. And go back to using your reins, squeezing your fingers as that inside hind leg comes up underneath of them. That really gets that drive from behind. And if you got them driving from behind, that shoulders will pick right up. And then you kind of get a whole lot of control of it. So that's a really important thing before you do before you make any kind of moves on the barrels, they really need to be able to stand up and pull themselves around and stay stood up. That way they can go any direction you ask them to. Because if one's leaning on you, there's only one direction they can go, and that's the direction they're leaning, without being really dramatic. So I feel like if you keep them stood up like that, you kind of have complete control of them, and you can place them wherever you need to. Ducking your second starts from the first. So a lot of horses will come and they'll start their turn a little early, and they get a little washed out, and then their body heads this way. So then you're kind of going across the pen, holding their face like this, trying to get them over there because they didn't finish their first. And then they lose all, like I said, and I feel like every time you touch a horse's face, you're slowing their front feet down. So the whole way across, you're holding on his face, you're slowing his front feet down. By the time he gets there, he's like, you're kind of setting him up to duck. So I'll actually work on my first barrel first to really get where he'll go in there and hit his first barrel and leave in a straight line, almost over up to the right a little bit, but that way where he's in this frame, where he's looking at the barrel, he's got a little bit of shape in here, and I'm not having to hold him up, like he's going over to his spot. So, and I feel like that comes from fixing your, fixing the exit of your first barrel. And then I'll always bring them up kind of like right here, but on one that really wants to get set, really get steady, I'll kind of over exaggerate on him a little bit. So after I get my first barrel straight, leaving that, I'll come across the pen right here. I push my outside foot into him to push that hip underneath of him, and then I just pick my reins up and ask them to go over here. And I'll keep doing that until that's where they want to go on their own. So hopefully in their, when you're in a run, they're thinking, okay, get over there. Get up on the right side of the barrel. And then I just kind of treat it just like any other barrel. And same as like, I don't like to make too big of an issue about something unless they're being really belligerent. And really, so I try to keep everything a little bit light and moving forward. So like I said, I believe a lot of your trouble comes from your first barrel. So that's going to be the, I'll show you there. That's step one, is to make sure they're leaving the first correct. And that comes back to the keeping your points, keeping their hip clear that on the back side, or keeping their shoulders clear on the back side. Really, really emphasize making them make this move right here, where they're clear of the barrel, and then they're taking that extra step back up towards the third, because that's the move you're going to want to make. That's the move that's going to keep them on their hind end and keep them and put them in the right frame to go across that second barrel. Then once you get that, go ahead and shoot them up over to up into the wall a little bit, so that they're really getting free and really wanting to get up into that spot. And then a biggest thing is make sure they're staying relaxed, because I feel like once a lot of those horses that do duck, they get really tight and really antsy, and that really overemphasizes the problem. So I always want to, after I do that, and I won't do that a bunch, if I do that, if I move them up into the wall like that, that's kind of an aggressive move, and a lot of horses will get tight on it. So if they're doing that and getting tight, then I'll back off until they can stay relaxed like this after I stop a colt. And then I want them to be able to walk around the barrel and just realize life's not so hard and don't take it so serious. And then you can kind of go back and tighten things up. But that, to me, is the best way to fix it. Horses ducking barrels, it's hard to fix. It is. It's a habit, and but that, to me, is the best way I've found to do it. To fix one is for keeping them relaxed. Make sure they're physically okay. Keep them relaxed. Then fix your first barrel. Then the approach to the second. that's gonna be the last step. So it's kind of a lot of steps before you even go to work on the ducking problem, but I feel like if you go in that order, you're gonna have the best chance of getting it resolved.